That night felt like any other long haul. Endless road, diesel fumes, and the hum of my truck's engine keeping me company. I was hauling freight through central Wyoming, eastbound on Highway 26. The moon hung low, silver light glinting off the asphalt. Out there, miles from anywhere, the world feels like it belongs only to you until it doesn't. It was close to 11 p.m. when my CB radio crackled to life. Just static at first, then a faint whisper cut through. It sounded like someone saying, "Hello?" Or maybe "help." I adjusted the volume, but all I heard was breathing, soft, uneven, close to the mic. "Copy that. Who's out there?" I asked. No response, just the quiet hiss of the channel. Then my headlights caught something strange up ahead, a semi-truck parked sideways across the narrow highway. No hazard lights, no reflectors. Its driver's door hung open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. My gut tightened. I slowed to a stop about 30 feet back, keeping the engine running. Old habits from my army days. You don't kill the engine when things feel wrong. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped out, the cold Wyoming air biting at my face. "Driver, you okay?" My voice echoed against the emptiness. No answer. Only wind and the faint rustle of tall grass nearby. Climbing up to the cab, I found a denim jacket tossed on the seat, a cup of coffee still half full, and the CB mic dangling by its cord. The air inside was still warm, like whoever had been there left only minutes ago. But there was no driver, no signs of a struggle, just silence that felt too careful. Then I heard it, 3 slow steps crunching the gravel behind the trailer. Not hurried, not afraid, just deliberate. I ducked down, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Show yourself," I shouted into the dark. That's when 3 silhouettes rose from the ditch. They didn't speak. One crouched, then crack. A gunshot split the air. The mirror beside me exploded into shards. Instinct took over. I fired twice toward the muzzle flash. A grunt answered back, and 2 shadows scattered into the field. I bolted for my truck, bullets snapping past, gravel kicking at my boots. I dove into the cab, slammed the door, and floored it, the roar of the engine drowning everything else. In the rearview mirror, one figure stood motionless in my headlights, before melting into the night. But what scared me most wasn't the attack. It was the thought that maybe, just maybe, they hadn't been human at all. By the time I reached the faint glow of a gas station miles down the road, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pulled in, parked beneath the flickering lights, and just sat there, staring at my reflection in the cracked windshield. My heart was still racing, my throat dry as sandpaper. I thought I'd escaped whatever that was on the highway. I thought wrong. Dispatch had already confirmed my call. They said a sheriff's unit was en route to the location I'd reported, the abandoned semi near River. I didn't go back. Couldn't. Instead, I sat there until dawn, the neon buzzing above me, every shadow outside the cab twitching like it was alive. The next morning, I found myself sitting in a small sheriff's substation in Casper. The place smelled of old coffee and dust. My hands still trembled as I filled out the incident report, the pen scraping unevenly across the paper. The officers listened politely, but I could see the look in their eyes, the same one I'd seen back in Iraq when someone reported something too strange to believe. Finally, one of them leaned back and asked, "You sure you saw 3 people? Not just one?" I nodded. 3, maybe more. One of them fired first. Hours passed before another deputy walked in, radio still clipped to his shoulder. "We found the truck," he said. My stomach tightened. He read from his notepad. "Engine's cold. Cab's empty. No sign of the driver." That alone wasn't what froze the room. It was what came next. "There's blood. Not much, but enough to tell someone got hurt. It starts near the passenger side and trails off into the field. Then it just stops. No footprints. No tire tracks. Just gone." He showed me a photo on his phone. A thin line of dark stains smeared through gravel, vanishing into knee-high grass. My mouth went dry. "What about the driver?" I asked. "Still missing," the deputy said. His phone and wallet were in the cab, even his keys. By the time I reached the faint glow of a gas station miles down the road, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pulled in, parked beneath the flickering lights, and just sat there, staring at my reflection in the cracked windshield. My heart was still racing, my throat dry as sandpaper. I thought I'd escaped whatever that was on the highway. I thought wrong. Dispatch had already confirmed my call. They said a sheriff's unit was en route to the location I'd reported, the abandoned semi near River. I didn't go back. Couldn't. Instead, I sat there until dawn, the neon buzzing above me, every shadow outside the cab twitching like it was alive. The next morning, I found myself sitting in a small sheriff's substation in Casper. The place smelled of old coffee and dust. My hands still trembled as I filled out the incident report, the pen scraping unevenly across the paper. The officers listened politely, but I could see the look in their eyes, the same one I'd seen back in Iraq when someone reported something too strange to believe. Finally, one of them leaned back and asked, "You sure you saw 3 people? Not just one?" I nodded. 3, maybe more. One of them fired first. Hours passed before another deputy walked in, radio still clipped to his shoulder. "We found the truck," he said. My stomach tightened. He read from his notepad. "Engine's cold. Cab's empty. No sign of the driver." That alone wasn't what froze the room. It was what came next. "There's blood. Not much, but enough to tell someone got hurt. It starts near the passenger side and trails off into the field. Then it just stops. No footprints. No tire tracks. Just gone." He showed me a photo on his phone. A thin line of dark stains smeared through gravel, vanishing into knee-high grass. My mouth went dry. "What about the driver?" I asked. "Still missing," the deputy said. His phone and wallet were in the cab, even his keys. Sleep never came that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those silhouettes moving in the dark, the slow, deliberate footsteps in the gravel, the empty cab, the whisper on the CB. By dawn, I'd given up trying to rest. I packed up, got back behind the wheel, and told myself it was just another delivery. Another night, another stretch of road. But something had changed. As I rolled eastward through the open plains, every shape on the horizon made me tense. Even a distant mailbox or road sign felt like a figure waiting just out of sight. The radio hissed occasionally, faint static, then silence. I told myself it was interference, just background noise. Still, my hand hovered near the mic every time it flickered. At one point, a convoy of trucks passed me going the other direction. Their drivers waved. Normal, casual. But when the last rig went by, I caught something odd. His hazard lights were blinking in a pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short again. S-less. It could have been coincidence. Or not. By the time I reached Casper again, I was running on caffeine and nerves. I stopped at a diner near the edge of town, a quiet spot where truckers gather to swap stories. When I told one of the old drivers about the abandoned truck on 26, he went pale. "You're not the first," he said. "There's been others. Rigs found empty, engines still warm, no drivers. Always near that same stretch." I wanted to laugh it off, but the look in his eyes killed the joke. He leaned closer. "Next time you hear whispers on your CB," he said, "don't answer. It ain't a person." That night, heading back west on another haul, I kept the CB off. I drove in silence, the kind that presses on your ears until you think you'll go mad. The sky was clear, stars sharp like glass. My headlights cut through the emptiness. And then it happened again. Static broke through the silence. Only this time, the whisper was clearer. Closer. "Driver, why didn't you stop?" I slammed the radio off so fast my hand slipped on the dial. The air in the cab turned cold, the kind that crawls up your spine. In the mirror, for just a split second, I thought I saw movement, a shadow stepping into the road behind me, framed by the red glow of my taillights. But when I blinked, it was gone. Since that night, I don't stop for broken down trucks. I don't answer strange calls. And I never, ever drive Highway 26 after dark. because I learned something out there. Some help calls aren't meant to be answered. I was running an overnight haul through the back roads of Oregon, long, empty miles of asphalt slicing through thick forest. The clock had just hit midnight, and the world outside my windshield was nothing but darkness and trees. No other cars, no lights, not even a stray animal. Just my truck, the road, and the low hum of diesel beneath me. Most nights, I liked the solitude. It was peaceful in its own way, the kind of quiet that lets you think. But that night, the silence felt heavy, like the woods were holding their breath. Then I saw it, a shape by the roadside. At first, I thought it was a fallen tree stump. But as I got closer, it shifted. A man, standing perfectly still at the shoulder, back turned to the road. No car nearby, no flashlight, nothing. Just him, motionless, facing the trees. I slowed instinctively, waiting for him to move, maybe wave for help. He didn't even turn his head. My high beams passed over him, but he stayed frozen, like a statue carved from the dark. That's when the unease crept up my spine. A man standing alone in the woods at midnight, not broken down, not lost. Waiting. I pressed harder on the gas, telling myself fatigue was making me see things. But a mile later, I saw another figure. This time a woman, long hair, red hoodie, jeans torn at the knees. She stood at the edge of the road, head bowed slightly. As my truck approached, she looked up. Our eyes met for less than a second, but it felt longer. Her face was blank. No fear, no plea, just cold awareness. When my headlights passed, I checked my mirror and saw her head turn slowly, following me as I drove away. My heart began to pound. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to laugh it off. Maybe locals. Maybe hikers. Anything but what my gut whispered. Something isn't right. A few minutes later, my headlights caught something lying across the center line. A body, flat on its back, arms straight, legs together, like it had been placed there deliberately. I slammed the brakes. Tires screeched, trailer fishtailed slightly. The figure didn't move. No blood, no skid marks, no sign of a crash. Silence again. Too perfect, too still. Every instinct screamed, "Don't get out." I flicked on my high beams. The figure's clothes glowed pale under the light, perfectly still, like a doll waiting to be touched. And just when I thought it couldn't get stranger, I noticed something that turned my blood cold. The body was breathing. The figure on the road didn't move, but I could see it now. The chest was rising, slow and shallow, like someone pretending to be dead. My hands were slick with sweat as I stared through the windshield. The air inside the cab felt too thick to breathe. Every instinct in me said to drive around it, to not stop, not check, just go. But curiosity, that stupid human instinct, kept me there for a second too long. I cracked the window. The cold night air rushed in. "Hey, you okay?" I called out. No answer. Just the soft whistle of wind weaving through the trees. Something about that silence didn't feel natural. No crickets, no rustling, no life. I flicked the truck into gear, easing it forward, tires crunching over gravel. My headlights washed over the figure's face, pale, eyes half open, but unmoving. When I steered slightly to pass, I glanced once more into the mirror. The body was gone. My heart stopped. Then I saw it, standing dead center in the road behind me, head tilted to one side like a broken puppet. I slammed the accelerator. The engine roared, gears grinding as I sped through the forest. My eyes stayed glued to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see it running after me. But what I saw instead was worse. Shapes. 6, maybe 7 figures stepping out from the tree line, their outlines flickering in the beams like ghosts turning solid. The first brick hit the windshield with a crack like thunder. The glass splintered, spiderwebbing in front of my face. Another slam. The passenger window shattered, shards flying like rain. I ducked instinctively. They were throwing things, bricks, metal rods, pieces of wood, and shouting, but not words I could understand. Just harsh, animal-like sounds. One of them stepped close enough for the headlights to catch his face, blank, expressionless, eyes wide open. He didn't blink. I kept my foot pressed down, swerving as rocks pounded the sides of the cab. Something struck the mirror, another hit the door. My truck fishtailed, gravel spraying in all directions. Then came the worst sound of all, a heavy thud on the passenger side. Someone had jumped onto the step of the cab. A pale face slammed against the glass, inches from mine. The person's mouth was open, like they were trying to scream, but no sound came out. Just that awful stare. I hit the horn and floored it. The truck roared forward. A moment later, there was another dull thump, the body falling away. For the next mile, I didn't breathe. When I finally slowed down, the road behind me was empty, but the forest wasn't. In the dark mirror, for just an instant, I saw eyes, dozens of them, glowing faintly between the trees. Watching, I didn't stop driving until the forest thinned out and the dark trees gave way to open highway. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the wheel straight. Every sound, the hum of tires, the wind rushing past the mirrors, sounded like footsteps chasing me. After 20 minutes, I saw the orange glow of a gas station ahead. I pulled in hard, parking beneath the brightest lights I could find. The moment I stopped, my chest heaved like I'd been running for miles. My windshield was cracked and webbed, the side mirror half hanging off. There were dents on the cab, small splashes of mud, and something darker. I stared at it, half expecting to see a face staring back from the reflection. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My voice came out uneven as I tried to explain what happened. People in the road, bricks thrown, bodies appearing and vanishing. The dispatcher was calm. Too calm. "Stay where you are, sir," she said. "We'll send a unit to check." I waited inside the gas station, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me. The clerk watched me from behind the counter, but didn't ask questions. Maybe he could see it, the fear still clinging to me like smoke. When the deputies arrived, I told them everything. They didn't laugh, but I could see that look in their eyes, that quiet disbelief. Still, they went out to investigate. The next morning, one of them called me back. "Mr. Evans," he said, "we found the spot you mentioned." My stomach dropped. He continued, "There's evidence of a disturbance, broken glass, scattered bricks, dents in the guardrail. A lot of tire marks, but no people, no vehicles, nothing else." I asked if they'd checked deeper into the woods. There was a pause. "We did," he said. "We found paths, but they don't lead anywhere. Just circles, like someone walking around the same area again and again." I hung up after that. Didn't know what else to say. I spent the next few nights parked only in well-lit rest stops, surrounded by other trucks. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing those faces, those empty eyes watching from the trees. And sometimes, when the CB radio crackles late at night, I swear I can still hear that same soft static, followed by faint, uneven breathing. Now, when I drive the night routes through any forest road, I keep my eyes straight ahead. No stopping, no slowing, because I know whatever's out there doesn't want help. It's waiting for someone to pull over. I've been driving trucks for nearly 15 years now, and most nights blur together. Long stretches of road, bad coffee, and the hum of the engine keeping me awake. But one night between Omaha and Fargo changed everything. It started like any other haul, quiet and routine. By the time it ended, I was lucky to still be alive. It was around 1 a.m. when I decided to stop at a small truck station I'd visited dozens of times before. It was usually bright and busy, filled with the sound of idling engines and fluorescent lights humming above the pumps. But that night, something was off. The entire place was dark. No lights, no signs, not even the faint buzz of power. The gas pumps looked like they'd been ripped out of the concrete. The windows of the main building were boarded up, and weeds crawled up through cracks in the lot. I sat there in my cab, staring at the empty station that, just a week ago, had been open. It looked abandoned, like no one had touched it for years. My gut twisted. Something wasn't right, but exhaustion was setting in. The next rest stop was miles away, and I could feel my eyelids growing heavier with every second. So I decided to keep driving, just until I found a safer place to pull over. About 10 miles later, I spotted a gravel turnout and pulled in. The air was still, not a single sound except the ticking of the cooling engine. I locked the doors, closed the curtains, and leaned the seat back for a quick nap. But sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I heard it, a faint creak, like metal shifting somewhere behind the truck. I sat up, holding my breath. Then came another sound, soft, steady footsteps crunching on gravel. Someone was out there. I looked through the side mirror. Nothing, just darkness. Maybe another driver? Maybe a cop checking up on me. Then came the voice. A low, calm whisper, "Hey." That one word froze me. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't curious. It sounded rehearsed. Before I could react, the footsteps quickened, right up to my passenger door. The handle rattled violently, jerking back and forth. Someone was trying to get in. I turned the key and slammed my foot on the pedal. The truck roared to life, tires spitting gravel. But the rattling didn't stop. It got louder, more desperate. Then a heavy thud shook the side of the cab. Someone had climbed up onto the step, clinging to the mirror. I turned, and there he was. A man, face pale, eyes wide and cold, gripping the door handle with one hand, and in the other, a small, jagged axe gleaming in the moonlight. The man clung to the side of my truck like some nightmare that had come to life. His hoodie flapped in the wind, and his eyes, wide, unblinking, locked straight onto mine. There was no rage in his face, no panic, just something cold and deliberate. He raised the axe. The first swing shattered the passenger window. Glass exploded inward, slicing across my arms and face. I ducked, slammed the gear shift, and floored the gas. The truck jolted forward, tires screaming as I tried to shake him loose. He didn't let go. Through the cracks in the windshield, I saw him hanging on, one hand gripping the handle, the other swinging that axe again and again. The blade struck the metal door with a hollow clang, sparks flying. I swerved violently, the truck fishtailing across the gravel. The man's body slammed against the cab, but somehow he held on, his face inches from the shattered window. He stared right at me through the shards, calm, focused, almost curious. That stare still haunts me. I slammed the horn, hoping the blast would startle him. It didn't. He just grinned, a slow, tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. The next swing hit the edge of the frame, inches from my head. I ducked again, blood trickling down my arm. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I veered hard to the right. The truck hit the shoulder, bounced, and the man finally lost his grip. He rolled off the side, disappearing into the darkness. I didn't look back. Didn't want to. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The tires screeched as I fought to get control of the rig. When I finally did, I sped down the highway like a man possessed, headlights shaking across the empty road. But the worst part wasn't over. A few miles later, I glanced into the mirror and froze. Far behind me, on the side of the road, was a figure standing under the faint glow of my taillights. The same hoodie, the same stance, watching. I drove for nearly 2 hours straight before I finally pulled into a gas station on the outskirts of Fargo. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone as I called the police. The officers took my statement and promised to investigate. I didn't tell them everything, not about the stare or the grin or how it felt like he knew me somehow. I just said, there was a man with an axe trying to break in. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't random. He'd been waiting for me. By the time I reached Fargo, dawn was just breaking, a pale orange glow cutting through the night. My windshield was cracked, the mirror dangling loose, and my heart still thudding like I'd run for miles. I pulled into a bright gas station and parked near the entrance, under lights so strong they made my eyes water. I sat there for a long time before I finally got out. My clothes were sticky with dried blood from the glass cuts. The truck door was dented where the axe had hit. The metal bent inward like a giant fist had punched it. The clerk behind the counter froze when he saw me walk in. I didn't even have to explain. I must have looked like I'd crawled out of a wreck. He let me use the phone, and I called the police. The dispatcher didn't sound surprised. Calm, professional, too routine. She said they'd send a patrol to check the area where it happened. A couple of hours later, I was sitting across from two officers in a small station room. One of them was taking notes while the other studied the cuts on my arm. "So, you're saying someone tried to break into your truck?" "Yes," I said. "He had an axe. He smashed the window and held on while I drove." They exchanged a look, not disbelief, but curiosity. Then the older officer said, "You're not the first to report something like that." That hit me like ice water. "What do you mean?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair. "We've had a few calls over the years from drivers. Same stretch of road, same story. A man in a dark hoodie, carrying an axe. Always appears out of nowhere. Always disappears before we get there." I felt my stomach drop. "Did you ever find him?" The officer hesitated. "Not alive." He stood, grabbed a file from the desk, and slid it toward me. Inside was a grainy black and white photo, a police record. The caption read, "Elias Crane, deceased 1998. The mugshot showed the same face I'd seen outside my truck window. The eyes, the beard, even the same twisted smile. He died near that same road." The officer said quietly, "Truck accident. His rig flipped after a tire blowout. When they found him, he was still gripping an axe." I stared at the photo until my hands started to shake. That night, I stayed parked in a crowded rest area surrounded by other trucks, too afraid to sleep. Around midnight, the wind picked up, a soft whistle through the mirrors. And just for a moment, I heard it again. A slow tap on the passenger door. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't look. I didn't breathe. Because some things you meet on the road don't stay buried. They just keep driving, waiting for someone new to stop.